Hello, Bears fans, and welcome to another edition of Bears on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I'm joined by the one, the only, the great Mr. Quentin Crisco. Quentin, my friend, how are you doing?
I am more excited for Chicago Bears football than I have been since week one. So week one was so deflating, and now it's who knew it would take till week 18 to get back here, but I am pumped. I am ready. I am excited for Bears Packers this week.
I am too, my friend. It's going to be a hell of a game, and there's a lot to talk about, and we will certainly get to that here in the show. We got a loaded show for everybody that is joining us here on Wednesday, running a day later than we normally do, the new year and the holiday. Let's be honest. I think that screwed everybody up, including us here at Bears on Tap. And Q, as a result of week 17, I can't just dive right into week 18 right away because a lot of big things happened, right? The Bears won against the Atlanta Falcons. The game was awesome, by the way. I was lucky enough to get to attend. The snow was awesome. That was well worth the vibe of freezing your ass off out at Soldier Field. I'll tell you right now, it was fantastic. But the Bears get eliminated officially from the playoffs because the Green Bay Packers and Minnesota Vikings did not tie on Sunday Night Football after the Rams obviously won, and that made things more complicated for the Bears. But then the Panthers lost and secured the number one pick for the Chicago Bears. So it is official. Chicago is on the clock in April at the NFL draft. Number one pick, baby. 2 years in a row.
I haven't
Crazy.
changed my Twitter profile picture all season because it's me holding up one finger, and I was like, ever since it became possible, I was like, I'm not changing this. It might happen again.
Just ride the vibe, and it
Yeah.
worked out, man. I mean, this is big because now Q, right, with the Bears getting the number one pick, it creates so many different what ifs of where does this team go? What do they do with the pick? What should they do with the pick? Right? Of course, everybody that has an X account or an Instagram or a Facebook or whatever social media platform is chiming in with their opinion here. But Q, before we dive into like the whole debate aspect of the number one pick, I mean, just how instrumental is this for Ryan Poles, for the future of the Chicago Bears to, dare I say, almost luck into the number one pick yet again for a second straight season?
It's huge. I mean, it's giant. You don't like right now the Bears are, I say, nowhere close to number one pick quality roster, but getting the benefit of that, like you don't see this happen that often where a team with this type of roster quality gets that type of asset in their hands. Just and I think luck is the perfect word. You don't make that trade last year with the thought, I mean, maybe a tiny thought that you might be able to get number one. Realistically, you're hoping a top 10. As long as that pick is in top 10, maybe we can get top 5 if we're lucky. But number one, that is a whole nother level. Like, I mean, and I was skeptical of the Panthers coming into this year. I didn't think they'd be number one pick bad. I don't know if many people did think, like, realistically think that they would be that rough just with the experience and that coaching staff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you look at how much has gone wrong for that organization. There's a lot of luck involved in getting number one. You need to be truly dysfunctional, and thank you to the Panthers owner for creating that dysfunction.
Yeah, David Tepper did an absolutely great job of creating said dysfunction. And we watched it go down all season long, right? I think every Chicago Bears fan this year had an eyeball, not only on Bears football, but on Carolina Panthers football because of the nature with the number one pick. And Q, before I get into that here, I do want to show some love to the comment section. And for all those watching along, you can join us. Even our ex-listeners, we can see your comments. Feel free to join the conversation here, and we can pull them up during the show, just as our boy Skokes is here. He says, dudes, what's up, Skokes? How you doing, buddy? And Scott from Iowa chiming in here. He says, in polls, I trust either way. He goes, the Bears will be better. He still wants Justin to stay and wants the Bears to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Q, I think that's the crazy thing about this whole thing, right? Watch the Panthers dysfunction. Bryce Young underperforms all season. David Tepper, I mean, from everything that we've kind of heard, right, in reports, effectively, it feels like sabotaged his own franchise because he was ultimately the one that said, take Bryce Young. The coaches, the front office wanted CJ Stroud, and now look how that played out. CJ Stroud's having an incredible rookie campaign, and Bryce Young is nothing really more than an afterthought this season just because of how bad the Panthers have been. To your point, Q, truly luck and a lot of thankful dysfunction to Mr. Tepper, and he capped it all off by throwing a drink at some Jaguars fan from his suite
Great.
in that game. Yeah, just to tap it off, make him even more of an asshole than he already is. But Q, unfortunately, because of the Bears getting the number one pick, they're eliminated from the playoffs. Are you? What was your feeling watching the Bears get eliminated from the playoffs? Was it the same level of what we talked about at the beginning of the season where we were kind of like, yeah, we'd be a little disappointed and, actually a little upset about them missing the playoffs, or because of how things have shaken out now, is your perspective changed?
How things have shaken out has definitely changed the perspective for me. I mean, I was kind of at the point where it's like, oh, we're back in the playoff conversation. That's cool at least. Like, so I mean, I wasn't really expecting it. I guess 2 weeks, like losing the Browns game, that's what burst my bubble with the
Yeah.
playoffs, and that's what burst my bubble with a lot of things. Of like, we needed to see. I felt like I needed to see more in that Browns game than we ended up seeing to really get excited about it. And that was kind of, if they beat the Browns, that's where I would have gotten really excited.
100%.
And they almost did, but almost isn't enough. And they were, as far as I was concerned, that meant they were out of the playoffs. I mean, I think it was some crazy scenario to get in from there. And I mean, at that point, I was questioning whether it was kind of worth getting it. Like, if you couldn't beat the Browns, like, what are we doing here? Kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, we're getting a moral victory out of this, but I was still questioning whether the right decisions would be made because you made the playoffs, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, and that's completely fair, because I think I definitely think, and again, I'll sit here and be completely straightforward. Q, I think you'll probably agree with me on this. None of us know what Poles is going to do. I mean, he's got a hell of a decision at hand here with regard to the field general and the quarterback position, the leader at head coach. Obviously, that kind of trickles down to the entire coaching staff. Obviously, we know offensive coordinator. If Eberflus is to stick around, is probably something that changes. It's probably not Luke Getsy a year from now. So there's a lot of what ifs still here as things kind of move and break down. But to your point, if they make the playoffs, it almost feels like that secures Eberflus's for sure. Like, he's back next year,
Yeah.
right? It's no longer well, we'll see, right? Because there was the report, and I know a lot of people kind of got all upended about it and whatever. That the report is the expectation is that Eberflus keeps his job after this season. That came out a little late last week, and the kind of hidden context to that was if they finish the season out well, right?
Yeah.
So that still means they got to go out. They had to take care of business against Falcons, what they did, right? 20-point win. That's really cool. 37-17. We love that. They need to now go out. You need to walk into Lambeau Field and you need to take care of business against the Packers and effectively potentially knock them out of the playoffs. Is effectively, I think, what the expectation is if Eberflus is to keep his job. If they walk in there on Sunday and they get their shit kicked, there's no chance that he sticks around, in my humble opinion. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a game that matters a lot for Eberflus. And I mean, I think it's easy to go with the sway and the movement of everything, but to of like, stuff started going really well. So like, maybe if they lose, maybe he would still be back. But I think it would take like, it needs to be kind of ugly, I think, for him to be gone, but it has the potential to be. So like, they need to show up and be in that game every second of it. They can't be making it close in garbage time. If Eberflus wants to be back, it needs to be we are in every second of this game and hopefully win, because I think that is what's gonna really. We've seen how the McCaskies operate. We know this story. We
Mhm.
know how much this game matters.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not this for Fields and for Eberflus. I think both of them. You come out of this game with a loss, you're looking at a head coach who hasn't beat Green Bay in 4 tries and a quarterback who hasn't beat Green Bay in 6 tries now,
Mhm.
5, 6 tries. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what George and the whole board cares about, is beating Green Bay first and foremost. That's the way of the division. That's the way of success. historically, and that is what matters in their family.
Yeah, and to your point, right? Even the McCaskies taking their pride and pushing it to the side here. Historically, right? Just history speaks. More years than not, the NFC North has run through the Packers. Yes, of course, there's been the years where Minnesota's had a great team and they've won the division. Sure, there's this year, right, where the Detroit Lions, for the first time in the NFC North era, I don't know if people really fully understand that, because I don't think we really talked about it a whole lot when they wrapped it up. But like, the last time the Detroit Lions won the division in football, it was still the old NFC Central. Like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were still a part of the Bears division. The last time, 1993 was the last time the Lions won. So now, when the alignment occurred in 2002 with the addition of the Houston Texans, and the South-North split occurred with the Central, it's really, since then, it's been the Packers, right? I mean, the end of the Brett Favre years, the entire, existence of the Aaron Rodgers era, and even a little bit of this year, right? Like, yeah, obviously the Lions clinched the division, but Green Bay's sitting in a playoff spot still. Like, they're still one of the better teams in the division. So I completely agree with you there, Q, and just how this front office operates. But because of that in mind, Q, I think really quick, I do want to share just a few short thoughts here before we get into the real meat potatoes, right? This is what everybody wants to talk about. And that is the debate about, number one, the direction of the future, all that good shit. And of course, we're going to get into it here, and we'll take that into our conversation about what's on the line for Green Bay here. But I just want to say, being at Soldier Field on Sunday was like bucket list material. It really was, because that morning, my girlfriend and I, we were up on the north side, staying at our place in the city. I went out and got coffee, and like, it had just started to snow. Mind you, it was at like 7:45 in the morning. And every part of my being as a Chicago Bears fan, who had never experienced, I've never experienced a snow game in person before. I was like, oh, just give us enough to make it cool. And Mother Nature delivered, man. We tailgated in the snow. Enough was accumulating where you could pack little snowballs and throw them at people. I mean, it was electric. And then, I mean, everybody saw it, right? I know Robert Schmitz, friend of ours here, commenting about it throughout his all 22 watching, of just, oh, it's the snow tape is incredible. Like, this is going to be so fun to watch. And it was, sitting there and just having the snow hit your face, watching, hearing the crunching of the pads at the line of scrimmage, watching DJ Moore toe tap that. And we were sitting right in that end zone when he scores to start the game. I mean, it was absolutely electric. So like, the whole spiel here to be said, if you have the opportunity in your lifetime to go to a late season Bears game and the forecast calls for snow, do it. Don't ask, don't bitch, dress warm, and just do it, because you will not regret it. That was like probably top 2 my favorite Bears games of all time that I've ever been at. And maybe the only other one I can think of that might top that was the 8-sack performance against Jake Delhomme and the Carolina Panthers in 2005. Like, it's been a hot minute, but that was a really, really cool game on Sunday. So to be there, to get to see them win, obviously kind of the aura and excitement around Soldier Field with the number 1 pick. Obviously, the disappointment with kind of knowing that it was virtually impossible, effectively, for the Bears to make the playoffs at that point, because of what the Rams did and took care of business against the Giants, even though they were oh so close to giving the Bears hope. But nonetheless, man, it was absolutely incredible. It was really, really cool. Got super, super pumped to have been able to be there and just take it all in, because it was incredible. But Q, comment section has thoughts, and I know we certainly do too, about the direction of the future. Skokes is here. He says, damn, I'm convinced, and I'm in on Caleb. He also adds, I'm out on Getsy and Flus. And Flus hasn't convinced me he's a good head coach, but sure can run a defense. And for those that are listeners of ours, and you maybe go, well, who's Skokes, right? He's always in our comment section. Go back to the summertime, listen to our series with all of our different guests. Skokes was one of our guests, and it was an absolutely great episode, and a loyal friend of the program. We appreciate him. And the other loyal friend here, Mr. Scott from Iowa, says, Eberflus is back no matter what. He says, Getsy has put together a solid game to save his job. And the offense has been clicking more recently. So that is something that I thought about too. Now, granted, inferior competition probably compared to some teams that you would like to see them play better against. But nonetheless, that creates the debate, right, Q? Everybody, you see it all over Bears social media. You see it in the national media. Everybody is on one side of the fence or the other. It's hit full reset, new quarterback, new coach, or let Flus hang around, get that new OC, and run it back one more time with JF1. Because then, right, it opens the opportunity. You can flip the number one pick into a true king's ransom, right? We thought the Bears got a king's ransom for the Panthers pick last year. Every analyst, expert, whatever the hell you want to call them, is saying the Bears could get probably tenfold of that because of this year's draft, because of the likes of Drake May and Caleb Williams being at the top of this draft. Q, we still got 1 week of football. So I know this isn't a definitive for certain answer, but where are you leaning right now through 17 weeks of the NFL season?
Man, there is so much baked into that question. Like, you look at it and you say, well, who's the head coach? Who's the play caller? Who's going to be working with this quarterback if there's a new quarterback here? I think those all matter a lot. Like, if personally, I think Getsy's probably gone no matter what. The only way I think he's back is with Fields sticking around. If there's been some breakthrough for them and Fields is like, yeah, I want Getsy here, and they want to stick with Fields, then I think that's the only way you see Getsy staying. But you get a new head coach, Ben Johnson. What quarterback does he prefer? If you're getting a new head coach, I don't think you're convincing the brightest and best to come here with Justin Fields handcuffed to them. You're getting the best and brightest when you're saying, and we're giving you your pick of quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe they will say Fields. I tend to think that it will depend on their scheme, their concepts, what they want to do. Like, I would think that Ben Johnson is probably more of a Caleb Williams kind of guy. Well, I think like a Bobby Slowick down with the Texans, probably more of a Drake May kind of guy.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot at question there. If Flus is back, who's coming in as OC? That's another big question. If it's Frank Reich, I think Drake May. They're going to go get Drake May, Frank Reich. I mean, that fits what he wants to do. He fits the scheme that he wants to. He wants a pocket passer, good height, great arm for a downfield passing attack like that. Frank Reich is going to go get that, which is Drake May. But if Justin Fields is your quarterback, I think you're talking about for OC. I mean, I don't even know. Maybe it still would be a Reich. Maybe it would be a Eric Bieniemy or something along those lines. But there's a lot at question there before I think you can even make that decision of what you're doing at quarterback. The coaches have a lot of say in roster. They just do. And
absolutely,
what they want to run is going to factor into everything. So that's what makes the question difficult to answer. But from a pure I watch quarterback, my opinion on it, man, Justin's made it hard last week. He showed a lot of improvement that he has he showed things on tape last week that we haven't seen since his rookie year, which is just, man, he just made it hard. He just made it hard. And this week is going to factor in just as much because here's my thing. I am a firm believer that when someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? In any aspect, any way. Like usually that's talked about from a personality standpoint, but from a production standpoint in football, I believe it to be true as well. After 3 years, I think we've mostly seen who Justin Fields is. There might be minor improvements throughout the way and growth, but I'm not sold that it's going to be wholesale improvements as a passer, as a drop back passer. And that's where I pause with it all. And it is scary to try to trust the outliers as the standard there for me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's completely fair too. And it is tough, right? Because I agree with you. I think the tape from Fields this past week that was the game where it was like, whoa, this was the Justin Fields that like we all thought about and remembered and talked about and were like what he can be as a talent potentially in the NFL, right? You saw it in his ability to escape the pocket when things broke down. You saw it in his ability to make plays on the fly. You saw him rip. I mean, that DJ Moore touchdown in the back corner of the end zone was an absolute beauty of a throw, and he made a couple of those throughout the
No,
game.
know what I liked more than that?
Hmm.
I liked the Tyler Scott drop in the end zone more because that was middle of the field. He attacked up the seam, right up the hashes.
Yeah.
And that is not something we have seen in a long time from him. He hit multiple passes in the middle of the field throughout the game, multiple passes with anticipation.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just lowercase a anticipation. There was like some solid anticipatory throws, which again is something we have not really seen from him. So he made it interesting.
Yeah, he really did. The last game that I can truly say that we saw those up the seam throws from him was that Pittsburgh game in his rookie year. That was the last game I think that Bears fans can confidently sit back and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember when he was slinging them up the hash marks. Like he looked great when he was doing that." Yeah, well, he did it again on Sunday, and definitely is going to make the decision hard because I know personally, I sit here right and I look at this and I'm like, I would not want to be Ryan Poles right now. I mean, he's in a great position because he has all of these different avenues and options, right? Like this is the one time where you can really say, like, Ryan Poles, the world is your oyster, my guy. You can do whatever the absolute hell you want to do at head coach, at quarterback, with your draft picks, whatever. But at the same time, you sit here and again, I think Q personally, if the Bears just had their number 10 pick or whatever, obviously you're probably just, oh yeah, you just stay with Justin, you see what you got, whatever. But then you have the number 1 pick. You have Caleb Williams and Drake May at the top of this draft. But then you also hear the whispers of like the value of that pick. That is franchise changing to somebody like Ryan Poles, right? Because he's probably here at least for one more head coach. So let's say even they did run it back for one more year with an Eberflus and a Fields at the helm. Maybe all of a sudden, right, they do something great next year and they go for it. And they've improved in this year's draft because of the capital, whether it's a premium veteran maybe for the number 1 pick that they get as a part of that package like they did last year with DJ Moore, or you go out and you just have a good draft. Because now we're starting to see the Ryan Poles draft picks pan out a little more. Jaquan Brisker's looked really good this year. Kyler Gordon has looked sensational in the slot. Tyreek Stevenson has been a very pleasant surprise at the cornerback position on defense. Darnell Wright has been really good this year as a rookie in the NFL. There are so many of these, and your boy Javon Dexter, right? Feels like week by week, he is continuing to be a force on the interior of that defensive line.
And Zach Pickens don't get enough credit. He's been making noise all like the second half of the season consistently.
Yeah. So that just goes to show that Ryan Poles because remember, we sat on here. I remember doing the show with you and with Beadon and with Joey 2 years ago for Ryan Poles' first draft. He had 5 draft picks going into that draft, right? Like, but it seems like he's just continuing to hit on enough of these guys to truly build a core. So I think that's at least where I sit back and, kind of to Scott's point earlier in his comment, right? The in Poles we trust. Do we want to give Ryan Poles more swings, right? At drafting homegrown talent and building youth? Or is it, hey, let's just go get this quarterback and still be able to use, right, the number 10 pick to get a really good player and so on and so forth. And to your, again, Q, you nailed it perfectly, right? It's a hard decision. Like I have racked my brain for more than probably 72 hours now, just being like, I don't legitimately know where the Chicago Bears go from here.
Yeah. I mean, I think you sit here and look at it, and if Justin Fields is the answer, it's easy, right? It's all easy. But where it gets difficult is if he's not the answer. Because if he's not, then trading down to me, it's really just delaying the inevitable for who very likely will not be as strong of a quarterback prospect as either of these two. Like, I mean, we've been hearing it for months. These two are right up there with like the Trevor Lawrence caliber prospect or a Joe Burrow caliber prospect. That's what they're being called. And at that point, if Justin Fields isn't the answer, all this pick accumulation, it's just going to come back to, well, we're going to trade up for this guy. So it's just delaying the inevitable in my mind for for a less known quantity, because we don't know what prospects will be there. I mean, maybe it'll be Arch Manning in 3 years. Maybe Arch Manning isn't good at football. We don't really know yet,
Sure.
like
Sure.
but what we do have known quantities of is Caleb Williams and Drake May, at least as far as their college status goes. And I, with my own eyes, I love Caleb right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've just started watching Drake May, have a lot more to do on him, but I see two very talented quarterbacks, and I'm hearing from smart people like Dane Brugler saying these two are just as good as anybody. Nate Tice has Drake May right there with Trevor Lawrence for prospect grades. Like, these guys are high end quarterbacks, and you don't come across them every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's absolutely the draft side of it, right? That Ryan Poles needs to weigh here, because I think the one thing at the end of the day, the quickest thing that needs to happen is you need to make a decision on the head coach, because Black Monday is coming up very quickly. It's less than a week away. Obviously, for those of people that are like, wait, what the hell is Black Monday? It's the day that everybody gets fired. That's all it is. Everybody loses their jobs on Black Monday. It's the day right after the regular season ends. And because that's when he's going to get right the opportunity to go interview the Ben Johnsons of the world and interview, all these top, head coaching candidates that are, again, going to want to come to Chicago. Let's just be completely honest. The Chicago job is probably the creme de la creme of vacancies that are probably going to potentially occur this year, right? Because I sit back and I think about it. I go, okay, Tampa's probably making the playoffs, so that's not going to be an open spot. Bowles will keep his job. Obviously McVay's going to keep his job, obviously all the playoff teams, but the Giants, maybe Salah's coming back with the Jets already. So that's not a job that's there. It really is the Bears. Like, that is the cream job, most cap space, tons of prospect capital, a young team. It's such a blank canvas for a potential head coach. So again, that's the first thing that needs to happen. And then obviously from there, you can shake out quarterbacks and stuff, right? Because we've at least think back until April, until that needs to be all figured out. Q, quickly, a couple of comments here before we continue on with our originally scheduled programming. Scott here says, if Oakland calls and offers any draft pick combination, and once they say Max Crosby, the Bears should say yes. That would be a hell of a defensive line with Crosby and Montez Sweat, if that was potentially to happen. Yeah. Scott followed up and said, if Getsy is gone, he said he could be convinced in giving T. Martin an OC opportunity. He is the Ravens QB coach. And yeah, Ravens obviously huge year under Todd Monken as their first year OC, hailed from University of Georgia. And I mean, Lamar has put together a really, really strong season. Looks like the Lamar Jackson of old. And again, that's why the Ravens are so good this year. And Skokes a little bit after that says, totally with you, Q, on just everything going through your brain in terms of what goes into the decision. But Q, in order for them to get to a decision, there's a lot on the line in Green Bay on Sunday. And it's time to start weaving our way into that. Not even just into the preview aspect of it, of the score predictions and all the fun stuff we do. This is more to break down than your traditional game preview, right? Because Packers can make the playoffs. They win, they're effectively in. They have like a 99% chance. They would need some really weird shit to happen to not make the playoffs. But if the Bears beat them, they only have a 15% chance of making the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, shit gets really weird. And it's going to make for a hell of a Sunday. I don't know if anybody's looked at the schedule, yourself included, Q, for Sunday. There's only like 5 or 6 games in the noon slot. There's 2 games on Saturday, 6 games in the noon slot. There's 7 games in that 325 slot. And they all have playoff implications. It's going to be electric. I mean, it is going to be a crazy afternoon of NFL football. Q, what is going through your head right now going into this Green Bay week? Like, what stands out the most? Is there a certain storyline that you say, this is what I'm hyper focused on? Or are you just as overwhelmed potentially as I am thinking about this game on Sunday of all the moving pieces that come into play here? Because this is such a crazy game that could be on hand for the best rivalry, arguably, in sports.
It's a playoff atmosphere for both sides. I mean, you look at Green Bay. Matt LaFleur lost last year on a win and in game.
Sure
He
did.
can't do that 2 years in a row and expect to not be on a hot seat. You just can't. So for him, this is a big, big spot. It's a must-win spot, not just to make the playoffs, but for his own job security.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you flip that over to the Chicago side. Matt Eberflus is, I mean, I think most likely back, but there's only one way to solidify it, and that's beating the Packers. Justin Fields, like I said, we saw last week, might be an outlier game. It was great. Shows it twice in a row. It starts to get really difficult to say, we don't believe in this kid. So you got Justin Fields playing for his job. You got Matt Eberflus coaching for his job. You got Matt LaFleur coaching to stay off the hot seat. I mean, there's a lot at play here to make this just such an important game. And from the Eberflus perspective, you got the defensive players loving this guy. They're going to play their hearts out for him. You know, there is a ton at play here that is just going to make this such an exciting game to watch. So many things hinge on this game that I can't wait for it. I can't wait to see how Justin plays. I can't wait how Justin plays against a team and a defense that has kind of had his number, even though they haven't been that good. Their defense has not been that good the last few years, but they've been solid against him. Big spot.
Big spot indeed. And I'm right there with you, Q, because I think the first thing, obviously, I think that comes to anybody's head is, right, Justin Fields goes out and the Bears put up 35 points again and walk out with a victory. There's a lot to be said, right, about what the future of Justin Fields in Chicago looks like at that point, because we heard, I don't know, you could hear him on the broadcast. We heard him loud and clear in the south end zone. We want Justin. We want Fields. Rang throughout Soldier Field during that Atlanta game on Sunday. But to your point, right? It feels like of the quarterbacks and the coaches that are involved in this game, the only one that has nothing to lose is Jordan Love, because he has had a really good season, 3,800 yards, 30 touchdowns. Unfortunately, it looks like the Packers fucking did it again and have like a guy that at least can help them win ball games.
You know, I actually have hope that Jordan Love is in the perfect spot of good enough that we're going to keep him, but not good enough to ever actually do anything in the playoffs.
I respect that. That would be nice. I would purgatory for the Green Bay Packers would be beautiful.
Like if he can be like Jay Cutler good, that would be awesome.
That would be sensational. Scott says, speaking of Love, that he's going to throw 3 picks on Sunday. He says #book it. But I mean, that's another thing to consider too, right? Like that to me is the biggest thing, that the first thing I think of with this game. Yes, Matt LaFleur could be on the hot seat because of this game. Obviously, Eberflus. When it comes to Eberflus, right? I think about that clip that went viral after that Christmas Eve game. Him dapping everybody up. What's up, V12? What's up, everybody? Nicknames for everybody. They all love him. They're all receptive to him. He clearly has that locker room in a good spot. Like the Eberflus culture is a real thing. There's no denying that. They love the guy. They like playing for him. Like you said, the defense is going to absolutely play their hearts out for him on Sunday. But at the end of the day, I also sit here and just go, these are 2 completely different ball clubs from week 1. Both of them, truthfully, right? Green Bay, Jordan Love took a lot of steps forward. Yes, he diced the Bears in week 1, but he went through a hell of a rough patch weeks 2 through 6, 7, and then really started to show some ascent.
Honestly, he didn't dice the Bears. Matt LaFleur did. Like, you go look at that tape, that is the definition of a coach getting his quarterback through the game. Like, they pulled out trick plays that, everything in the book to make Jordan Love's stats look good was pulled out in that game.
Yeah. And it didn't hurt either that you had Aaron Jones arguably play his best game of the season in that first game too, right? When you can rely on a run game and Aaron Jones to catch passes out of the backfield on easy throws for Jordan Love, that certainly makes his job easier too. But you have that at hand. But then you look at the Bears. To me, there was more evolution of the Bears as a franchise over the course of this season. And it's going to sound weird, Q, but I think from a standpoint of here at OnTap Sportsnet doing Bears coverage, watching this team since our upstart in 2019, this is maybe my favorite season to have watched of the Bears. And I think it's because we saw growth. Like this was the first real season I feel like we saw something for the future. And it's guys that aren't the quarterback always necessarily, but seeing the defense grow, the Montez Sweat edition, and how that completely just changed how this defense played football. He came, and all of a sudden they went from one of the worst NFL defenses to one of the best in a very quick time span. Bears lead the league in interceptions, and they've done majority of that damage since like week 9. It's unreal the difference that this team has, and that's something that I think about in the case of Matt LaFleur on Sunday and Jordan Love on Sunday. I don't think Scott from Iowa's take here is that crazy.
No,
the Bears have had 3 interceptions in a game multiple times in the last handful of weeks. So who's to say they can't do it again? I'm right there with you, Q. Like it really does feel like this game, just because of the evolution and everything at hand, every snap is going to have that playoff atmosphere. Like no matter if you're watching it alone or with your family or with friends, or maybe you're out in public at an establishment and watching it with a bunch of people, every down is going to be big eruptions of either cheers or jeers throughout the whole course of this game on Sunday. And I am over the moon excited about it right there with you, Q, because it's kind of fun, despite the Bears not having anything to play for in the sense of the playoff picture, to have everything to play for in the sense of the future of this franchise.
Yeah.
That's
and
exciting.
I mean, to me, the exciting thing with that too is on paper, this game's going to come down to the quarterbacks on both sides. Since getting Sweat, the Bears are a top 3 run defense in the NFL. That's what Matt LaFleur's offense does. They run the football and open up opportunities in the passing game off of it because they run the ball so well. You take away the run portion of that, it starts to become a lot harder to pass the football. So their points are going to, on paper, fall on Jordan Love's shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
You flip to the other side of the football for the Bears offense. Green Bay's defense, they're okay against the run, like 20th, somewhere around there. So like not terrible, not good, not just slightly
Painfully
below
average.
Yeah. And the Bears are pretty good at running the football. So maybe they'll probably try to lean into that. But it seems like historically, I've said this before, like Bears will be able to run the football. Green Bay's not good at stopping the run, and Green Bay always finds ways to stop the run against the Bears. It seems like that is never the way that it goes down. So that brings me to the drop back game. Green Bay's defense, 27th in drop back success rate allowed.
Woof.
And 22nd in drop back EPA allowed.
Woof.
But the Bears offense is 26th and 24th in those categories.
Woof
so
and woof.
The difference in this game to me is going to be Justin Fields and Jordan Love. Justin Fields needs to be better than that 26th, 24th against a defense that he should be able to do that against, because everybody else has been doing it against him. Tommy DeVito did it against him.
It's true.
So you should be able to go into Lambeau and get yards, get points through the air. And really, that's going to mean the game. How Jordan Love's able to do that against the Bears, because the run game will hopefully be gummed up, and how Justin Fields does it against the Packers defense, because everyone's done it against the Packers defense.
Yeah. And Scott from Iowa brings up an interesting point here as well. The offensive lines, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, the Packers O-line's a little banged up. I might be wrong on that note. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I follow the Green Bay Packers at all. But the Bears offensive line, very different, right? Braxton Jones started that game, but soon after was hurt. He's healthy.
Tevin
Jenkins.
Thought that was his best game of the year, I think. I had graded at least. Tevin was gone.
Right.
Sure.
No Tevin Jenkins. Lucas Patrick has, at least been serviceable over the course of the season. Nate Davis will play in this game, and he looks like himself again. And Darnell Wright is not a fresh rookie on game one anymore, right? Like, That's another aspect I think that needs to be considered too, is the trenches on both sides of the balls, right? And how much that's going to have to play a factor in this game on Sunday too.
Yeah, I mean, so Braxton Jones, I believe his biggest weakness, which is really just taking on power, because he
He
pretty
gets
much
bull rushed really easy.
Braxton Jones' strategy to stopping a pass rush is just I have 35-inch long arms, and I can just keep you off me. Sure, get your hands in my chest, whatever. I'll get you off, but that does lead to him falling into the quarterback's lap at times. And Preston Smith is really good at getting into that chest and just bull rushing. So that's a tough spot there. Tevin Jenkins, Tevin is the motor of this offensive line. When he is not on the field, they do not play with the same tenacity. They just don't. And like this past game, I swear, the coaching staff went to the Bears O-line and challenged them before this last game. Because in the game against Arizona, I thought they looked a little lackadaisical at times.
I agree.
Not against the Falcons.
Mm-mm.
They were trying to bring the punishment to Atlanta's defensive line. They were punching first. They were making them feel every block, and that they had to be challenged. That doesn't just happen. That doesn't just change. So I think that's the Tevin Jenkins effect too. Him being back out there, there's just a nasty to this group when he's out there. Like you see, Braxton can be nasty, but it's usually when Tevin's next to him that he's nasty. Like Darnell's always nasty. He has hit a bit of a rookie wall here. Like he doesn't, I feel like he's fatigued, basically. Yeah. You know, you go from playing a 10-game college season to an 18-game NFL season, there's going to be impacts. 100%. But he still brings the nasty. He still brings the finishing mentality. Nate Davis, we need more. We need more from Nate Davis. I've been standing up for him a lot this year, saying that, you know, he's pretty consistent. He's a professional. He does his job just consistently well enough that you're happy with it. Not the last 2 weeks. We need more. I think the snow messed with him last week. It messed with his footing. And then he was trying to, it just basically went into quicksand at some point with that. But he's the highest paid offensive lineman on this team. We need more from him this week. Last week of the season, huge game, a lot of implications. Nate Davis can't be a problem for being the highest paid player on the offensive line. And as long as Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins are playing, as long as Nate Davis is playing well and Tevin Jenkins is on the field, I'm really not worried about Lucas Patrick. When those two are going good, Patrick looks fine. Yeah. When one of those two isn't there or isn't playing well, that's when you really start to notice Lucas Patrick.
It's when he suffers a little bit in that center spot for sure. Q, I got a fun follow-up question. This one's totally off the script here for us. Are you extending Tevin Jenkins?
Yes. I mean, the contract needs to be right because of his injury history. And sure. I mean, even this year, I mean, what did he miss? 6 games, 7 games? Like it's not a no-brainer that you go give him a massive contract because of that injury history. But I am unless his demands are ludicrous, I'm making something work. He is, like I said, he's the motor of this group. He is so good. And he is just, man, he is so good. It is so fun to watch. He just bullies 300-pound men like it's nothing. It is incredible. And he's so athletic. He's so strong. And he's so angry. And I love it. I just love it.
And Ryan Poles nailed it because the Ryan Pace regime was hell-bent that Tevin Jenkins was going to be a tackle and he was going to be this incredible tackle that they steal at the top of the second round in that 2021 draft, and everybody's going to be super happy. No, Ryan Poles knows. He's a former big boy himself. He looked at Tevin Jenkins and goes, your nastiness is going to be really fun inside at guard. And that's exactly what it's become. That's the position. That is truly the position, right? Like, if I had to categorize and stereotype every offensive lineman, your left tackle is your ballerina. He's got the best feet typically on the line. He's got the best footwork. He's got the longest arms. He's got to be a stable workhorse on that left side. Right tackle, it's evolving a little more, right? But you could be a little bit less athletic. You could be a little one thing or another. But as long as you got some grit and some tenacity to you and got good feet, you're going to be fine at right tackle in the NFL. Center, you're the cerebral part of the offensive line, right? You're calling protections, you're calling out run stacks, you're doing all that. That's your job. You are the leader on the offensive line. The guards' jobs, just go be a big pain in the ass and be nasty. That's your job. That's your job as an offensive guard. And anybody that has played the position, even at a lower level as a kid, who always got to trap everybody? It's the guard. Because the guard is the dude that should come in. Quentin Nelson, nastiest dude on the field at any given time. Zach Martin, that's a nasty dude too. Tevin Jenkins, right up there, man. That was a hell of a move by Ryan Poles to say, Tevin, you are best suited to play guard in the NFL, and you're going to be a really damn good one when you do. Nothing short of it as long as he can stay on the field, man. He's been, like you said, he's a treat to watch. He really is, because he is the definition of a bully on the inside of that offensive line.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. I love it too. As an offensive line nerd myself, I enjoy watching Tevin Jenkins. He makes me excited to watch Bears football, especially on the offensive line, because I remember years where like watching that offensive line was painful. So he's a treat to watch on the inside.
I mean, since the 06 team, have they really had that good an offensive line any given year?
They've had good offensive linemen, but I don't think they've ever had a great unit as a whole. I agree. Yes. Ever since that 06, which that 06 unit, real quick to sidetrack this for a hot second, that team was dirty. That offensive line was so good. Like, I know nobody knew who like Fred Miller and John Tate and Reuben Brown and, you know, all those guys were. Everybody knew Olin Kreutz, right? Garza stuck around long enough where people knew who he was.
Garza.
But yo, that O-line was so good. That's why Rex Grossman looked good that season, because that offensive line was dirty. And they could do whatever they wanted. And that's why they ran.
Think about the year before when the offense was, you know, rookie Kyle Orton and Thomas Jones. Thomas Jones averaged like 4.2 yards a carry that year.
Won 11 games that year.
Everyone knew what was coming.
Yeah, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter because they were absolutely able to get the job done. Yeah, man, those are some good offensive lines. I would love the Bears to even get back there. Really quick on Tevin Jenkins. He still has another year under contract. He's due to make about $2.8 million next year. Would be a free agent then after next season. So that's where the extension thought came in. Probably more of a next season discussion, next summer discussion, but an interesting question nonetheless.
If he did this for 17 games, he'd be all pro this year. There's not a doubt in my mind. He's playing all pro level football.
1,000%. Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. Agreed with you, Q. Well put indeed, sir. Let's move on from the offensive line talk here. We'll circle this back thing in for the completion of the show here, Q. Let's get to our normal preview stuff here, right? Our fun stuff. You've said it already. It's going to come down to the quarterback play for the Bears to win this game. What other keys do you have for the Bears in order to be successful on Sunday against Green Bay?
DJ Moore. There is not a coincidence why when the Bears offense is going best, DJ Moore is north of 10 targets. He is your best player on offense, and he needs to see the football. While I do worry a little bit about trying to assess Fields while force feeding DJ Moore that many targets, I think that's your way to win. It has been all year. When DJ Moore gets those targets, the offense rolls. So get the man his targets. And then beyond that, we saw some burst from Herbert again. Juice Herbert's burst is back. He's back to looking like a pinball out there, just like bouncing around. Getting the run game going in some fashion with that, which hasn't really been an issue for the Bears all year, but I expect that you're going to need it this game. You're going to need to be able to get tough yards when you need them and be building the passing game off the running attack. I think that's something that's going to be important. And then I think the book on Love has been the same since before week one. What we said you had to do to beat the Packers in week one, you got to get after Jordan Love. You need to make him feel the pressure. Jordan Love is more than capable and plenty good when playing within the system on time when things go the way they're supposed to go. When things break down, that's where his mistakes really get loud. And that's where you need things breaking down for him. You need him in a dirty pocket. You need Tyreek Stevenson jamming the wide receiver out of bounds so that he's not getting into his route and in his spot on time. So Jordan Love can't hit that timing throw where he's supposed to. Love is really good at following the rules. You need to make a world where there are no rules.
I like that analogy. I like that analogy a lot, Q. Yeah, and just to add to a couple of the pieces that you had to throw in there, DJ Moore, perfect example, right? 9 catches in the win over Atlanta, had 13 targets, like you said, that north of 10 number. When the offense hums, DJ Moore hums. And there's just something so poetic about hearing some classic Lil Wayne go DJ at Soldier Field every time he touches the ball. It makes my heart warm, and the mid 2000s kid in me is smiling ear to ear every time I hear that song. Nonetheless, in agreement with you, Q. To me, it is the defense. It is the only thing I'll add. You said the pass rush. I agree with you wholeheartedly there. Montez Sweat and Javon Dexter need to just make hell for Jordan Love all day long. Force him to have to throw over the middle off timing. Let TJ Edwards, let Tyreek Stevenson, let Jalen Johnson, hell, let the safeties, Bojack and Brisker, eat in this game. Force 3 picks. Let's let Scott's prediction come true. I love when Scott goes out on a limb and just throws out there what he's feeling. This is one I want to see happen really, really bad. I think if Love throws 3 picks on Sunday, the Bears win this football game. Plain and simple. If the defense can make their presence felt, they're going to have a tough time. Stop the run. And then again, obviously, we already addressed it. Justin Fields needs to play like he did against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 17. He does that. It's going to be a hell of an offseason. That's really, let's just say that. If the Bears are able to finish this thing out 8-9 and win over the Packers for the first time in quite a while. Q, score prediction for Sunday?
Green Bay Packers, 20. Chicago Bears, 38.
Ooh!
Cherry on top, Eddie Jackson, pick 6 to close the game.
Oh, that would just make your heart smile, Q, wouldn't it?
You know how I got those numbers? Week 1 final score, 38-20.
Little revenge game. I like that. I like that a lot. I am not far off from your prediction. I am also going to say Green Bay 20, but I do think the Bears managed to put up like 35 in this game is my guess. 38 probably ain't far off. Let's be honest. Cairo's probably going to kick a couple field goals, but I'm feeling maybe 34 even, because that feels like a sweet Cairo Santo number there, where he'll get a couple of field goals and continue to make his money after getting that extension this season. Q, before we shut this thing down, sir, any final thoughts? Last show before the end of the regular season.
Final thought. It's been a roller coaster of a year, man. This has been started about as low as you can imagine and just kept going lower for a few weeks somehow. And then now we're back to having some optimism, to feeling something good about the team. And I mean, and I've sat on this show talking about how Matt Eberflus needs to be fired, how they need to move on from Justin Fields and all this other stuff. But both those guys deserve their flowers. Matt Eberflus has taken this team through a rough year where mired in controversy after week 1 with the assistant coaching stuff. Another assistant coach gets fired later in the year. I mean, we can sit here and say that's on him. Those were his guys. It's still not easy to navigate. He has navigated this locker room, these players, this team. These are his guys right now. And he deserves credit for how he's managed this whole thing. And Justin Fields deserves credit for how he's managed everything. And I will never stop rooting for Justin Fields, as much as I might say on any show that, I think they might need to move on. I think they need to go after a rookie, whatever it is I might say. I'm always going to be rooting for Justin. I love watching him play football, and he deserves a ton of credit. It's not easy to navigate what he has this year, all the controversy around him, or not even controversy around, that's not the right term, but like um all the talking heads about
Mhm.
him constantly. The fact that we've been debating who would be the number one pick for the last 10 weeks. That's not easy, and he has navigated it very well. And the city loves him. And I hope the best for the kid. I think he deserves a ton of credit for where he is right now. I hope he goes out and has a great game Sunday.
Q, I don't think I could put that any better myself. I think you nailed it because it was a roller coaster of a year, right? We went from such an optimistic summer to a heartbreaker in week one, a devastating first 6 weeks effectively of the season, and then things started to change. The winds started to shift. Fields gets hurt. Everybody's like, where do we go from here? Bajent manages to go 2-2. They add Montez Sweat. He gets called the worst trade acquisition in all of football by Douche Lombardi on Pat McAfee's show, only to turn around and arguably be one of the best defensive players in football through the final 9 weeks of the season. Hell, he's going to lead the Commanders in sacks, and he hasn't even played for them since the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Ain't that crazy? Just been a wild year to see this defense go from one of the worst in the NFL to one of the best after that transformation. Eberflus taking over, managing the responsibility of calling a defense while, bringing in Phil Snow to give him some help behind the scenes. Flowers, as you said, to Matt Eberflus this season for navigating the Bears through all the shit that they've gone through. And then to Justin Fields. I'm right there with you, man. I got to watch his first college football game in person. Came in garbage time after Jake Fromm and the boys 30-piece Austin, PA in the first half of opening week, Labor Day weekend back in 2018. He goes to Ohio State, the big win over Clemson in the semifinal, plays through broken ribs. The Bears draft him. I still remember my reaction. I woke up my entire house that night, the night he got drafted by the Bears. I'm right there with you, man. JF1's always going to have a special place in my heart, whether he's a Bear or not next season. I don't know where they're going to go. I hope he's still in Chicago. I am a Justin Fields lover. I think he can be the guy. I think there's ways that they can make it work. We've seen the flashes. I think he is the definition of a quarterback that needs to play with confidence. And I think he's played with confidence ever since he's come back from that injury and taken over since that first Detroit game. But I agree with you, man. No matter where he is, the city of Chicago is going to love him forever. And he's going to be one of those Bears quarterbacks that, the old timers tell their kids about when they're older about, I watched Justin Fields play football, and that dude was pretty special. So, like I said, Q, this has been one of my favorite seasons of the Bears in probably the last 6 years for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, doing the show with you and Juice and everything like that, it's been a blast. And we're going to have more to discuss, obviously, on the season end show here. And we got a big off season ahead of us with building the board project, which is going to be an absolute blast as well. But yeah, man, it has been something special. And Sunday's going to be fun. It's going to be the hell of an explanation point, hopefully, on what was a crazy 2023 Bears season.
I hope so, man. Go Bears.
Go Bears, baby. Well, before we get out of here, Q, I do want to remind everybody, Bears on Tap, we are not your only source of Bears news at the On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out our friends over at Bears Nation Pod. They do a great job. They were live a little bit earlier, actually, today. You can go check that out over on our YouTube channel, and as well as their different outlets as well. They're at Bears Nation Pod on the socials. Be sure to follow us as well at Bears on Tap on the socials. If you're not following at Butkus Stats on the X app, I don't know what the hell you're doing. I've told you every single show to do it. If you're not doing it yet, be sure to do so. I am at Loose on Tap, our other buddy, Mr. Juice on Tap as well. And we will be back with you as a trio, hopefully, next week after the season comes to a close. As always, we got everything here. Bulls, Blackhawks, and both sides of town for baseball are covered here. You can catch all of that over at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on all the socials. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button on the YouTube page as well. And you can join us just as our great commenters here have all show long over on YouTube, Facebook, and on X now too. Don't be shy, folks. You guys can comment along too, and we can now see them finally because Elon got that fixed after a long time off. OnTapSportsNet.com, at OnTapSportsNet on the socials. As I said, the OnTap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago Sports. Big win against Atlanta on New Year's Eve. The Bears have a chance to start 2024 off right with a W in Lambeau Field. We're excited about it. I am Ron Luce from Mr. Quentin as well. We will see you guys next week. Q, bear down.
Bear down.